you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised.
Christopher in, is it Catlettsburg?
Yes, it's Catlettsburg, Kentucky. I got something to say back to what Cordy was saying. I think people use God for things that's not easily explainable, for things that they don't understand.
Yep.
And what I'm calling about is to say that you can't have omniscience and free will. You can only have one or the other.
Actually, that's not completely true, but boy, the free will discussion is a long one. So it is the Christian model where, and there's three prongs of this, where the God is omniscient, knows everything without error, is the creator, and had choices in what they could create. Those three things combined violate the possibility of free will. Now, Christianity asserts all three of those, and so their God is in direct conflict with free will. And they will try to get out of this by saying, hey, you can have omniscience and free will because my knowing what you're going to do doesn't change the fact that you still chose to do it.
Okay, well,
and that's why there's three prongs there.
Well, say that's true. Let's just say the Christians are true, and it don't change the fact that you're going to do it. And
they're wrong. They're wrong because their God specifically chose the action. See, there's this, when God created the universe, according, in the Christian ideal, he chose to create this specific universe where I would take this specific action, and did not choose to create a universe in which I did not take that action. That means that the ultimate responsibility for the choice is on that God who chose which action I would take. And that is why it's in violation of free will. The excuse that they use is to ignore the other two prongs of this and say, no, God exists outside of time, so he sees all of time as one thing, and therefore you can know what decisions people will make without actually interfering with their ability to make them, because it would be like watching a movie in reverse, because God has that ability. So it's the specific decision to create this universe where I took an action that violates free will.
Hey, is Christianity incompatible with parallel universes, or like one-off parallel universes?
That discussion, one of the other things that's come up is this idea of aliens. And I'll get right back to you, Christopher. I'll keep this short.
I'm not saying it was aliens.
Parallel universes, aliens, and stuff like that. And I've watched theologians tap dance around this, and they have no answer. But anyway, continue.
Christians don't like sci-fi very much.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. Anyway, Christopher, go ahead.
This is the way I look at it, God has prior knowledge before you're even born. He knows your destination already. So if God knows my destination is hell, aren't I brought into this world condemned to hell already?
Calvinists think that.
So, yeah, Calvinists are that way. But here's the thing. The fact that somebody has knowledge of an event does not on its own impact free will. For example, there may not be free will at all, and we can have that discussion some other time, and have had that discussion. And I tend to look at free will as generally illusory, but I'm kind of in the compatibilist vein. But let's imagine, for example, that I had a time machine, and that the universe, in fact, does have free will, that you have free will. And I use that time machine to go back to yesterday, and at that point, I know what you're going to do. I know that you're going to call the show and make this argument. That doesn't change whether or not you made that of your own volition. In and of itself, my knowing that, because I have a time machine. And the way around this for Christians, or the way they attempt to get around it, which is false because they have all three prongs that I talked about, is to look at God as a time machine, as divorced from time.
Right, but the time machine argument can work. I mean, like, if you're watching a reality show that's taped, I'm not sure. After you finish watching this reality show, you know everything that they have done. And if you were able to maybe deliver that show back in time so that only you could see it, but it wouldn't change anything in the past, you'd know in advance how the reality show ends before it ends, but that wouldn't change the behavior of the people.
Yeah, in part it requires not just foreknowledge, but foreknowledge foreknowledge without the after knowledge, I guess. There is a temporal component to this, which is kind of tricky, and it would probably bore people to tears.
Yes, and one more topic before I go.
Sure.
Christians, they all the time tell me that I have faith. They say I have faith that the sun's going to rise. I don't have faith. There's a difference between faith and knowledge.
Yep,
you know,
evidence.
I know the sun's going to rise tomorrow from recorded events.
Well, actually, you don't. Well, all right. You know, in the colloquial sense, that the sun's going to come up tomorrow.
Yeah.
The way I've answered it is that I don't have faith. I don't have faith in anything. I define faith as the excuse people give for believing something when they don't have a good reason. And if you have a good reason, then you're no longer appealing to faith. They tend to reject that and say, oh, you have faith, and what they mean by faith is you're not certain. They just point to the fact that you're not absolutely certain about something, and so you're relying on faith. And to me, that's a useless definition of faith, because there's so little that we're absolutely certain of. I'm not absolutely certain the sun will rise tomorrow, because I don't know that it won't blow up in the next 10 seconds through some freak accident. So I certainly do not have absolute certainty that the sun's going to come up. But if all you mean by faith is you don't have absolute certainty, well, congratulations, you're right, but you're using faith in a way that just doesn't map to anything useful.
Okay, let's say this. There's a difference between blind faith and faith from knowledge.
I wouldn't use knowledge that way. I would say there are degrees of certainty that we all acknowledge. You should try to believe things based on good reasons, and if you don't have like absolute certainty about something, you have to make the best choice that you can based on your limited facts. Faith is more like coming up with something wildly unlikely just because you feel like it, even though it has no evidence for it, or you have evidence for the opposite.
Faith is what Corey exercised at the beginning of the show when he claimed to have knowledge and also claimed that he had no responsibility to demonstrate that there was any reasonable basis for that knowledge. I don't have faith. I don't have faith the sun's going to come up tomorrow. I trust that the sun will come up tomorrow at some degree of certainty, short of absolute certainty. And the reason for that is that I have a bulk of evidence about not just past events. I'm not just saying the sun's going to come up tomorrow because it came up today, but because we also understand the movements of planets in the solar system, and the fact that our sun rotates on its axis. If the sun doesn't come up, our Earth rotates on its axis is what makes the sun appear to come up. We have enough of an understanding about that to justify that. First of all, if I'm wrong, you're never going to know about it. If the sun doesn't come up tomorrow, nobody's going to prove me wrong. I mean, we would all be dead.
This sounds like a stealth Pascal's wager.
But anyway, we're short on time. Thanks for the call, Christopher. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.